Okay, good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to the second semester lecture series. Starting with that, specialized in the accounting discipline. We are going to start the lectures for the taxation. It's again a 4 credit subject, and we are going to cover um, tax system and the calculation and the preparation of the tax returns for the individuals, companies and the partnerships. In addition to this direct tax, we focusing on the indirect taxes as well, and the apart from that we are going to focus on the tax administration part as well. Okay, so myself and Mr. Dharmadasa Rangal, he is a Senior Commissioner of Inland Revenue Department, will facilitate for this course unit. And then for the evaluation purpose, we focus on the end semester examination 60%. You are receiving 2 group assignments, assignment 1 and 2, each contain 20 marks. Okay, and this would be the, we are having the 15 weeks lecture series, so that each week we are going to cover according to your syllabus, and so we are, by based on the review questions, we are going to cover the each and every area. So first we look at the sources, different sources, and then individual companies, partnerships. In addition to that, we focusing on the clubs and trade associations, and apart from this income tax part, we focusing on the indirect taxes as well, value added tax with these new amendments, and ESC, NBT, and those are the indirect taxes. And in addition to that, we focusing on to cover the income tax administration and the tax exemptions and the tax plan. Okay, so this would be the overall content of the taxation one. So you will receive the first assignment will be due on 7th week, and the second assignment will be due on 14th week. Okay, this would be the time plan for our course unit. And today we are going to focus on the introduction part to this course unit. Okay, so first we look at what do you mean by a tax. Okay, some of you may be familiarized with this taxation system and the tax calculation, some may not. So anyhow, we are going to focusing on the both of you. And so starting with that brief introduction, tax is a compulsory charge. Whether we like to or not, we have to pay. It is imposed by the government. Even though it is not direct benefit, there is an indirect benefit to the public at large. By paying the income tax, by paying the indirect taxes, the payment who's doing the payment will not have a direct benefit, any benefit, but indirect benefit we are receiving public at large. So that tax imposes as a personal obligation on the people's ability to pay on their income earned. Based on their income level, we had focus on their ability of payment. So that when we imposing the tax, we have to focus on this personal obligation. Okay. Before coming into the present tax system, we'll have a brief introduction of the tax system in Sri Lanka, how it will be developed. So first income tax system developed in Sri Lanka in 1932. Okay. After independence in 48, government introduced in the same period, Inland Revenue has been formulated in order to administrate the tax system in Sri Lanka. After the independence, 48 introduced the wealth tax, gift tax, expenditure tax, abolished later, but income tax continue to be in force. Income tax haven't changed, but indirect taxes time to time it has been developed, some are abolished, some new amendments were made. So that main indirect tax in 1980, we are almost all the are familiarized turnover tax, but after it came renamed as a good and service tax. Then after 2002, we paying the main indirect as a value added tax. These days we are having more comments on this value added tax system with the after 1st November 2016 new amendments are implemented. Okay. So these are the general characteristics of a taxation. Whatever the country, commonly these things they are going to consider. It's a compulsory contribution, I have mentioned it earlier as well. The taxpayer to the state, to the government, to the country, it's a compulsory payment of the contribution. It is a personal obligation. So as a person, as a company, we focusing how we are going to define this person it later, so that it's a personal obligation. It has an objective of common benefit to the people as a whole. The main objective is to give the benefit as a whole, and it can be levied only by the government. Government is the only authorized institution to change these taxes, and it's a regular and periodic payment. Tax is a regular payment. Some monthly payments are there, some annual payments are there, biannual payments are there, quarter payments are there. So it's a regular and a periodic payment. These are the some general characteristics of a tax system. So when it comes to Sri Lanka, these are the main objectives, the objectives of this tax system. The main objective is to what? To collect the revenue to the government. That is the main income source to the government for the development of the infrastructure and other facilities. In order to develop that, they collect the revenue by means of these collecting taxes. In addition to that, these are the some of the objectives by imposing these taxes. Removal of inequalities, that means the income and wealth disparity. What do you mean by these inequalities? Inequalities means throughout the country, almost all the people and the companies, households, they don't have an equal income level. So that we are having the rich people as well as the poor people. In even under the economics you are studying, the poor people, we are having the huge income, disparity or the gap. So that by using these taxes, government try to minimize these inequalities. How? By charging high taxes from these high income earners and distribute these collected revenue to the poor people as how? As subsidies. Okay. Some the rural areas, they receive, the farmers, they receive subsidies by way of this income tax collected. So that's how government try to minimize or the removal of inequalities by through this taxation. And capital accumulation. As a government, we have, as a country, we have to accumulate the capital. So the tax system will facilitate for this capital accumulation. So tax incentives to promote local and foreign investment. You will be studying in your lecture series. As a company, as an individual, we receive a lot of tax incentives so that investors, they will invest in Sri Lanka. It may be the local or foreign. So through that, country try to accumulate the capital for the development. And then prevention of harmful consumption is one objective, to prevent the harmful consumption. How? So especially liquor. Okay, liquor and cigarettes, we are imposing high income tax rate for the countries, the companies, they are paying high income tax rates. So we'll discuss these rates later. So that through that we cannot totally minimize this harmful consumption, try to minimize, to mitigate, control this harmful consumption, because through that the end customers need to purchase high price for this consumption, as well as the companies, those who are producing, they have to pay high income taxes for the government. Anyhow, still it is continuing, but one object is to prevent the harmful consumption. And finally, enactment of foreign currency, enhancement of foreign currency reserve by giving, let's say, giving incentives for the exports tourism. Okay, by developing especially tourism sector, they are giving some incentives. Through that they are going to collect the foreign currency reserves. Okay, so these are the objectives of this tax system. By achieving these objectives, they try to develop the country. Main objective is to collect the revenue to the government. So then we look at the principles of taxation. So this means when we introducing new tax or even changing the existing taxes, when we made the amendments to the existing taxes, we need to, as a tax authority, as a government, they need to consider these kinds of principles, adhere to these principles. First one, it should be equality. A good tax system should be based on the people's ability to pay. We have to impose a tax based on their earnings. It should be the equitable. Instead of that, if you are charging high tax rates without considering their income abilities, it is not equitable one. So that always we have to focus on the people's ability to pay. That means indirectly we focusing on their income levels. Then certainty. Tax should be paid certain and not arbitrary. That means the rate should be specific. This much of amount based on your revenue, based on your profit, I have to pay. That is the fixed amount, so it is not an arbitrary one. Then it should be convenience. Tax should be collected by state in manner which convenient to the taxpayer. The convenient means for the taxpayer, that means especially in order to practice this convenience, the government offer the, let's say, installment basis payments, self-assessment payment basis, and the companies even they are not paying the total income tax payment at the end of the financial period, but quarterly they are paying their installment based on their forecasted figures. Even the individuals, they can pay as an installment basis. Even the indirect taxes, they can pay installment basis. It will be more convenient to the taxpayer. Then economy. The economy means tax should be inexpensive in collection. That means just imposing the tax will not be the end point, because they're focusing on to collect the taxes, so they have to incur some cost. Okay, so when we collecting the taxes, we have to incur less cost for the administration part, because the companies, they are Inland Revenue Department, they are having a lot of official figures, let's say commissioners, deputy commissioners, assistant commissioners, assessors, and the taxpayer, tax officers. They are continuously working towards to collect these taxes. So they have to do some visits and reminders and some schedules. So these all are involved for the collection of taxes, so that by imposing this tax, and the collection part should be inexpensive to the government. If it is benefit, that means always we have to focus on the cost benefit analysis. Then elasticity. Tax should be flexible. Okay, so that even though it's a rule or the law, tax when we impose in the taxes, we give some flexible areas, some exemptions in order to promote the tax, because by imposing taxes we are not going to discourage the companies or the individuals, we are going to encourage their activities. So that's why taxes always should be flexible. And diversity, tax should be diversity in tax system in the country. That means almost all the areas should be covered. Some manufacturing, tourism and other services, healthcare, all the areas we have to be covered. And the simplicity. Taxation should be simple, easy and understandable. The important one. Because if the taxpayer is not in a position to understand what is this tax, on what ground, whether I am liable to pay, if it is so much complex, so it is not, the target will not be achieved. So that the tax, whatever the tax implemented by the government, it should be simple as that. So that it should be simple and easy to understand. All the criteria and eligibility, payment, some exemptions, all the things should be in the simple terms. And the coordination. Taxes imposed should be coordinated with one to other. So the tax imposition will be done by the government. On behalf of that, Department of Inland Revenue will be administered the tax system. So the central authority would be the Department of Inland Revenue. In addition to that, other local authorities are there to collect the taxes. Apart from these local authorities, customs, they are going to collect the taxes on behalf of the companies exercise duties. They are collecting the taxes on behalf of the government. So that there should be a proper coordination in between these tax administration authorities. Central Tax Collection Authority, Department of Inland Revenue, other provincial councils, customs, these institutions, there should be a proper coordination. Then there should be the neutrality. The tax system should not have any adverse effect. There should not be any inflationary effect. But for the indirect taxes as well, there are some inflation effects we can see, but the principle is that there should not be any negative impact by imposing any tax. Okay. Okay. So in Sri Lanka, today we are just providing the introduction. Okay. In Sri Lanka, we can identify main two types of taxes: direct tax and the indirect tax. Direct tax is a tax paid by a person on whom it is levied. And in other words, the impact and the incidence fall on the same person. It is borne by the person on whom it is levied, and it cannot be passed to other person. Person who liable to pay should have to pay by himself. He cannot transfer his liability to other person. The main example is the income tax. If I am liable, I cannot transfer, you have to pay on behalf of me, because myself need to pay that taxes to the government. That is called the direct tax. The second one is the indirect tax. In case of indirect tax, the impact and the incidence fall on different persons. It cannot be, it is not borne by the person on whom it is levied, can be passed to others. The value added tax. Companies, they are imposing the tax, they have to liable, but they will transfer it to the customers. In customers, we are paying the VAT. That's why our prices are high. So that the impact and the incidence are in two folds. But for the direct taxes, we cannot transfer this impact and the incidence. It is fall on the same person who is liable to pay should have to pay anyhow. And the indirect tax, we cannot transfer it to the other person. So, why we are liable to pay income tax? Are we willingly pay that tax voluntarily? Do you like to pay taxes voluntarily? No, never. Due to what? Tax law. It's a law, regulations are there. No one will be paid if there is no any regulation or the law. So that we are going to impose a tax based on this law. We call it as Inland Revenue Act number 2006 is a main law. After that, it has done series of amendments. Okay, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13 and 14. After that, even they have done some amendments. Even after one budget speed, they will be doing the amendments for this 2006 Inland Revenue Act. Okay, so with that amendments, we are going to study this tax system for the year of assessment 2015 and 16. Okay. Up to now we discussed what? What do you mean by a tax? Who will be the different types of tax, objectives and the principles. Okay, those are the basic things. Then I have mentioned that the person need to pay taxes, especially direct tax. Person who is liable to pay tax cannot transfer it to the others. For the indirect tax, it may be the two forms. Who is liable to pay tax? On what grounds we are going to charging. So liability to income tax in Sri Lanka is based on the charging section of Inland Revenue Act. There is a separate section number 2, we call it as a charging section. So that income tax is charged at specified rate for every year of assessment. We look at what do you mean by year of assessment. On the profits and income of every person, we are going to charge the income tax from every person. Whenever arising of a person resident in Sri Lanka and arising or derived from Sri Lanka, person not resident in Sri Lanka. Even a resident, even a non-resident, every person, they can charge the income tax. Okay. So that every person is liable to pay income tax. So every person. This also defined in the Inland Revenue Act. It's a law. The person is defined. It includes companies, body of persons or any government team. Okay. A company is that means any company incorporated or registered under any law in force in Sri Lanka or elsewhere and includes the public corporations and companies incorporated under the Companies Act number 7. What number? Number 7 of 2007 is treated as a company. So it should be incorporated company, registered company. So we call as for the tax purpose as well, we call as a person. It includes the person. Companies are considered as a person. In addition to that, individuals, trust, executor or administrator, cooperative societies, association, clubs or society of person, whether corporated or unincorporated, charitable institutions, any local or public authority or a government. These almost all the persons are liable to pay income tax. Government can charge the income tax from these figures. Question. Determine whether a partnership is liable to pay income tax as a person under the above provision. Partnership. Online students as well, you can provide the answers. Partnership. What would be the status? Partners as individuals. Application is no. As a partnership, we are not going to pay the income tax. Under the general meaning, a partnership is a body of person. However, for the purpose of income tax, under the income tax law, partnership is not a body of person. Okay, does not include the partnership. As such, a partnership is not liable to pay income tax as a person, because under the charging section we focusing on what? Every person. But partnership is not fall into that meaning as a person, so that under the partnership name, partnerships are not going to pay the taxes. Instead of that, under the partner's name, individuals as individual partners, they are going to pay the taxes. So that under section 78 for the partnership should be charged on the aggregated divisible profits only. You are experiencing how we are going to calculate the partnership taxes as well. Then you will be witness that one, because as a partnership we are not going to pay the taxes. Just you are going to calculate the divisible profit. Based on that, you are charging 8%, but you are going to do the payment by way of individual partners. Okay, so that is the that is regarding the body of person. Okay. Determine whether an individual is liable to pay income tax as a person under the above provision. Individual. Individuals are fall into that definition. Yes, because under the charging section, individuals, companies, trustees, specially mention the individuals, they are fall as every person. So myself, as myself, I have to pay the taxes. Okay. So that only term means for the partnerships, we are not going to pay the taxes as a partnership name. Okay. Now we are going to impose the income tax. Now you studied who will be liable to pay tax. Every person is liable to pay tax. Then you are going to impose a tax on a person. Person can be either resident or non-resident. Person that under section 2 we studied that every person is liable to pay tax. Okay, so that person will be either resident or a non-resident, not the citizen. We focusing here under the tax residence. Today we are going to cover this residence rules as well. So person, either it may be a resident person or a non-resident person. And we are going to pay the tax for a year of assessment. These are the common terminologies applicable for this imposition of taxes. Its appropriate rate are specified. When we impose in the tax, we are going to charge income tax from persons. That person will be either resident or a non-resident. They are going to pay the taxes for the year of assessment, and appropriate rates are there. And it has been imposed on the profits and income. We are going to pay the taxes on profits and income. It may be arising or derived from Sri Lanka in the case of resident person, or non-resident person. In case of non-resident person, then it may be the resident person. Whenever arising, that means the world income, they have to pay the taxes. Those are the general guidelines. We have to be focusing on this imposition of tax. Every person will be liable to pay tax. That person will be either resident or a non-resident. Before charging these, calculating the income tax, you have to decide whether he is a resident or a non-resident person. Then we are going to calculate that taxes for a year of assessment. Okay, you are studying year of assessment 15 and 16 period. Then you should have to have a specific rates. That's why we focusing on under the principle certainty. Rate should not be arbitrary. The fixed certain amount should be there, and we are going to pay the taxes on our profits and income. Those things you have to be in your mind, then it is easy to calculate the tax liability. First you have to check whether he is liable to pay tax or not. Then you have to decide whether he is a resident or a non-resident person, because if it is a resident person, he is liable to pay income tax on their income on whenever arises, that means a world income, not within Sri Lanka but abroad as well. If it is a non-resident person, he is liable to pay income tax under the Sri Lankan tax law. We are focusing on the Sri Lankan tax law only within Sri Lanka. Income and revenue derived earned within Sri Lanka only in the case of non-resident persons. Then year of assessment and the specific rate. This would be the summary you have to keep in your mind throughout this taxation course unit. Okay. Then main concern is the resident. I have mentioned that every person is liable to pay tax. Then we have to decide whether he is a resident person or a non-resident person. So that section 79 deals with this residential status of the Inland Revenue Act. For the individuals and the companies or the body of persons, because we identify list of liable persons, individuals, trade associations, clubs, all are there, so that we identify two main areas, especially for the individuals. The residence of an individual is determined on the basis of his physical residence or the physical presence in this relevant year of assessment, whether he is physically present in Sri Lanka or not. That is the main criteria to decide whether he is a resident person or a non-resident person. Because you are having the individual tax calculation, company tax calculation as well. In any case, if you are receiving an individual tax calculation, first you have to look at whether he is a resident person or a non-resident person. If it is an individual like us, we have to focusing on whether that person is physically present in Sri Lanka, how many days. Okay. Then it may be a company or a body of person. So how we are going to decide whether it's a resident company or a non-resident company based on this? It should be registered or principal office in Sri Lanka. It should be registered in Sri Lanka or principal office should be in Sri Lanka. If not, the main key control and the management should be exercised in Sri Lanka. Okay, just having the branch will not be the result. So that main management control function should be within Sri Lanka, or if not, registered office should be in Sri Lanka. If it is so, we call it as what? Resident company or non-resident company? Resident company or non-resident company? Let's say registered office is in Sri Lanka. If so, that company is resident or non-resident? It's a resident company. Okay. If not, non-resident company. Okay. On what income tax is payable? On taxable income. Every person is liable to pay income tax on taxable income in Sri Lanka. Taxable income in Sri Lanka. The other question is to decide on what income is payable. Because all the income will not be tax liable. Okay, because you decide taxable income. Okay, tax exempted income as well. You have to carefully segregate this taxable income and the exempted income. Before identifying this taxable income and the exempted income, you have to look at what? Almost all the income sources. After that, you can segregate it whether it is a taxable income or a exempted income. Okay, the law prescribes that the income tax is payable on the profits and income arising from the different sources. We have to pay income tax both profits as well as the income. Okay, so after that you can decide whether it is a taxable income in Sri Lanka or not. These are the sources of income, possible sources of income. Profits from employment. If you are an employee, your employment income is liable to pay tax. Net annual value, rent income, occupiers income, dividend income, and interest income, profit from trade, business, profession or vocation, charges or annuities, royalty income, discount income, premium income, winning from lottery, betting or gambling, and in the case of non-government NGOs, any sum received by way of granting donations or contribution or any other manner, income from any other sources whatsoever not included in the profits of casual or non-recurring nature. Okay, we focusing on the main areas in your course unit. These are the main areas. So, in addition to that, we will provide some documents to refer these income sources as well. Okay, we will look at one by one as a brief introduction, because almost all the sources you are going to study next week onwards. Okay, the profits from employment. The word employment has a wide meaning, in that is includes all the receipts from services rendered. If you have rendered the services to the employer, you should have a agreement in between employer and you. All the emoluments and the receipts be categorized into the employment income. Due to your contract, you are receiving these emoluments and the other receipts. Then net annual value. So net annual value is relating to the property income. If you have a property, so you are having the income as a owner. In case of you are rendered, let it out to the other person, any other income source is there. Property owned and occupied. If you have the property yourself, you are going to occupy that one, then we call it as a net annual value. Okay. The owner occupies the properties only and his resident, the net annual value is his income. Okay, so profit from income, then net annual value. However, NAV of one place of residence owned by occupied from the income tax is exempt. If you have only one property, then you are going to occupy that one, then it is not taxable income, it's a exempted income. Just to give the idea, you are in depth, you are going to discuss these areas. Okay, so that net annual value is relating to the properties. Rent income, same property, you are not going to occupy, instead of that you are going to rent it out to the other person or let it out to the other person. So we call it as a rent income. Okay, occupier's income means you are not the property owner, you are the tenant of that property. Some situations are there, tenant have a income because he is paying some amounts to the owner, okay, but you are occupying more benefit than what you are going to pay. We call it as a occupier's income. NAV, rent income and the occupiers are relating to this property income. Okay, property income you will study what do you mean by NAV, rent income and the occupier's income. Okay. Then dividend. If you have purchased the shares from the companies, at the end of the year you are having the profit share called as a dividend income. If you have invested in our banks or the other financial institutions, you are receiving the interest income. Okay, all are sources of income. You are liable to pay income tax. For example, the interest income is considered in which debtor pays to being allowed to use of capital. It is assessed as the income derived from investment. For example, in interest income from money lending, still it is a income. Whether we can fall it into the interest income or any other. Interest income from money lending. I am doing the money lending business. So at the end of the each agreement term, you are receiving the interest. So that interest is relating to this one or not. Because if it is relating to this one, it should be derived from the investment. My business is money lending, whether it is an investment or a business. It's a business. It is not fall into this interest income because it is not the investment for me. Because my main business activity is the money lending, so that it will be fall into trade, business, profession or vocation, not this interest income. Because some of the questions will be there, you have to clarify whether this income source is investment or his business. In case of this person, if he is doing the money lending business, it is not his investment. It is his main business, so that you cannot categorize it as his interest income. Okay? He should have to categorize into this one. Trade, business, profession or vocation. Okay? This is the main source for the company taxation. Because companies are doing different operations, complex operations are there. So you have to carefully analyze almost all the expenses and income. Then you have to adjust your accounting profit, what you have already prepared under the financial statement. We are not going to calculate the taxes based on that accounting profit. You will be adjust so many amendments for this accounting profit and convert into the tax adjusted profit. Okay. So section 25 and the section 26, we will discuss it later. We will be studying in depth. According to these two sections, you are going to change this accounting profit into the tax adjusted profit. Okay. So just have an idea. Profit from trade, business, profession or vocation. Trade means any trade or manufacturing activities. We under the income tax law, we are going to classify it as a trade. Business means it has a wider meaning, even agricultural undertaking as well, money lending business, all are businesses. Okay, this is not only the trade and manufacturing, all the other services, the service businesses are categorized under this business. Then profession is what? Any person engaged in the professional activity with his professional qualification could be categorized as a profession. Just have an example. Profession. Profession. Lawyers, doctors, they are having the profession. Okay. So if doctor there, he is doing public practice, his income is categorized under this profession category. Okay. Then vocation. Vocation is generally an activity of an individual involving his unique skills. Sportsmen, musicians, due to his skills, by using his skills, he is going to earn something. We call it as a vocation under this taxation. Musicians we cannot categorize as a trade or business. It's just a vocation. By using his unique skills, he is going to earn some income. Okay. So this is another source. Then charges and annuities. That means charges and annuities means due to the legal obligations, you will receiving a fixed amount throughout the sometime it may be the infinite number of period you are having the income. Okay, due to the legal obligation. Okay. Then royalty income. Royalties are payment received for use of the rights, use or the rights to use any patent, copyrights, mining rights, trademarks, any industrial, scientific or commercial equipments. If you are going to use any other person's inventions, we have to pay the loyalty fee for his use. Franchises, they are going to use any other person's their trademarks, you have to pay that royalty income, so that the inventor side it would be the income, payment side it would be an expense. We are focusing on, we have invented something, we give it to the other person to do their business. Then he will pay royalty payment for me, it's an income to me. I am not going to do that business, but by using my innovations, he is going to do that business. Okay, so that amount for my side, it's a income. Then discount income. For the banks, by discounting the negotiable instruments, we are having the discount income. Okay, exchanging checks. Then premium income. Okay, if any person receives the excess than his entitlement, we call it as a premium income. Okay, those are the main sources of income we are going to discuss throughout this course unit: property income, employment income, business income, loyalty, discount, interest, dividend, likewise. Okay, so almost all the areas you will be covered throughout this course unit. Then I have mentioned that every person is liable to pay tax. You are going to pay tax on profits and income. You study, just have an idea what are these different sources or the profits and income. Then I have mentioned that he is going to pay these taxes on one particular period. We call it as a year of assessment. Okay, so that year of assessment means the period of 12 months commencing on the first day of April of any year and ending on the 31st day of March in the immediately succeeding year. Okay, so that you are studying the year of assessment 15 and 16, so that you are going to consider the income and the profits from 1st April 2015 to 31st March 2016. You are going to consider the earnings of that particular 12 months period. Okay, you are not going to consider before or after that period. But some exclusions are there, we will discuss it later. Some cash terms are there. But 99% we focusing on that period earned revenues and the income, profits and income. Then you are going to decide, calculate whether that period what would be the taxable income, how much you are having the exempted income. For the exempted income you are not going to pay taxes, but taxable income you are going to pay that specified rates. Okay. Then basis of chargeability of income tax. The profits and income that could be taxable in a year of assessment is the profits and income in that year of assessment. So you have to keep in your mind, it is not necessarily required to receive cash in terms of such profits or income during that year of assessment. Sometime, for example, some payments you are entitled to receive, but actually you haven't received within that period, but you are liable to pay income tax whether that amount is received within that period or not. We are not going to focus on that actual receipt. If you are liable to owe, you have earned that actually, then you have to accumulate the total income to your taxable income. For example, look at this one. An employee has received the salary for the months of March 2015 on April 5th, 2015. This is a question. Your salary you received not in March but April 5th. Okay, so what would be the applicable year of assessment? For the March salary, what would be the applicable year of assessment? First look at that one. 14, 15, yes, correct. Because 31st March 15 means 1st April 14 to 31st March 2015 would be the year of assessment. So that year of assessment will be end in 31st March. But you received your salary in 5th April. So what you are going to do that for this whatever the amount of salary you have received on 5th April, whether you are going to consider it as earned in March or April for the tax purpose. I am referring here tax purpose, okay? But you actually received on 5th April, but you are entitled to receive that on March. So under the tax law, what would be the applicable year of assessment? It should be for the 14 and 15. Even though you received on 5th April, you are entitled to receive that on 31st March. Okay, so that you have to consider the income relating to March month, not the April month. If you consider that it is relating to April month, you are not liable to pay income tax on this 14 and 15. So instead of that, you have to pay tax on what? 15 and 16. But the correct thing is, you have received 5th, but you are entitled to receive it on 31st March, so that you have to pay when you are calculating your employment income, because it is relating to the salary. The relevant source would be what? Employment income. Not the business income, not the royalty, not the interest, not the dividend. This one is relating to which source? Employment income. When you are calculating the employment income, you have to aggregate the April 5th received salary to the March salary as a March salary and get the total employment income. Okay, these things you have to be keep in your mind. Okay, then under section 28, all the accounts of trade, business, profession or vocation are to be made up for this period. Okay, especially if you are doing your business on business or for the companies or any other business organizations, they have to record their, or they have to maintain their all accounts relating to this period, 1st April to 31st March. If any taxpayer wishes to make account for the different period, there is a discretion under section 28. He is going to get the special direction from the, if that time period has been changed. Some companies and the banks are there preparing the financial statement 1st January, 31st December. They have to get the discretion from according to this section 28 subsection 3. But commonly you have to follow this 31st April to 31st March. You have to keep your accounts in line with this period. Then up to now we focus on what? Who is going to liable on which period? What are the different sources of income? Then we focusing on who is going to administer, who is going to do the changes, these amendments. Administration part. Any tax system to be effective and efficient, such system should be properly administered. That will be done by whom? Commissioner General of Inland Revenue is a head figure in the Department of Inland Revenue. Under him have a different official designations. They are going to overlook these administration part. Okay. Okay, then I have mentioned that every person is liable to pay tax. That person should be either resident or an non-resident. Okay, so that resident or an non-resident for the tax purpose is because resident persons, he or she is liable to pay tax on world income. For the non-resident person, that person is liable to pay only on the income derived from Sri Lanka. Income earned within Sri Lanka would be the liable income. Okay, so that will have. So profit and income arising or derived from Sri Lanka, that is related to whom? Non-resident person. So what are the income? Because for the resident person, world income, total income, we have to pay taxes. For the non-resident person, I have mentioned that profits and income arising in or derived from Sri Lanka. How we are going to identify those things? These includes all profits and income derived from services rendered in Sri Lanka. Some non-resident persons are there, they are going to render the service to Sri Lanka and he will receive employment income, professional income, vocational income, likewise the service rendered within Sri Lanka. Then he may have properties in Sri Lanka, even he is a non-resident person, even Sri Lankan citizens may be a non-resident for the tax purpose. Okay. Even myself become a non-resident person for the tax purpose. But still I have the properties in Sri Lanka. So income earned from that properties, you are liable to pay taxes even you are a non-resident person. Then third one is business transactions within Sri Lanka. If you have some businesses, agriculture industries or any other businesses, the income derived from these businesses, you are liable to pay taxes. So that you have to keep in your mind, if you are a non-resident person, you have to pay tax, the income only arise within Sri Lanka. So these are the possible areas. It may be the employment, it may be the property, it may be the any other business transactions. If it has been done within Sri Lanka, for these income sources, you have to pay income tax even you are a non-resident. Next one. Determine whether the profits from employment received by a person resident in Sri Lanka by rendering service outside Sri Lanka does fall within the scope of income tax in Sri Lanka. Okay. He is a resident person because question itself it has mentioned that he is a resident person. Okay. If he is a resident person, on what income he is going to liable? If he is a resident person, he is liable to pay income tax on which income? Within Sri Lankan income or world income? World income. So that even though he is earned the income from outside Sri Lanka, he is liable to pay tax world income, so that he is liable to pay taxes on both income. If an individual is a resident, especially it has mentioned it's a resident person, the profits and income that arise outside Sri Lanka fall within the scope of Sri Lanka. Even he has earned that income outside Sri Lanka, but we consider it as his income under the Sri Lankan tax law, because as a resident person he is liable to pay tax on world income. Yeah, because we focusing here, you are liable, but you will receive different exclusions. When the liable means you need not to compulsorily pay. You pay, you are liable, but if that country is charging your taxes, from here you are excluding. Some countries, their taxes are different, but in Sri Lankan tax law, you are liable. Liable means it is not not give the certification compulsory you have to pay. You are liable, but you are having different exemptions and the exclusions. Okay, so that according to that, the final tax payment will not be that amount. So these figures you will be excluded. Okay, so but anyhow you are liable, but the actual payment will be now different. Okay, so we'll have a short break and start the session. Okay, welcome to the again lecture. So now we are going to have an experience on this to decide whether he's a resident individual or a non-resident individual. So today we mainly focus on the individual one, because we have to calculate the physically how many days he is in Sri Lanka or outside Sri Lanka. So the resident of an individual is determined under the provision of under section 79. So subsection 2 deals with this one. An individual who is physically present in Sri Lanka for 183 days or more during any year of assessment shall be deemed to be resident in Sri Lanka throughout that year of assessment. Year of assessment means 1st April to 31st March. Through that, normally we are having 365 days. Okay, we are not going to consider total 365 days. For this taxation part, we focus on whether he is physically in Sri Lanka 183 or more. Minimum one would be the 183. If so, he will be a resident person. If not, he will be a non-resident person. That is the decision criteria. If yourself, you should be in Sri Lanka 183 days or more. If so, for that particular year of assessment, we are not going to consider the forever, but we are focusing on that particular year of assessment, you will be treated as a resident person. Okay. So, shall we look at this example? Mr. Melder, a Sri Lankan citizen, immigrated to Australia in 2011. However, since he has property in Sri Lanka, he arrives and departs frequently. His movements are as follows. Okay. So, from 2011, he is in Australia. He arrived 1st May 2012. Again he departed June 20th. He again came to Sri Lanka August 20th. Again leave from Sri Lanka November, December, January likewise. His movements are there. Now you decide what? Whether he's resident or a non-resident. Okay. In this case, you are having different tier of assessment. So if we want to decide this kind of thing, so we'll have this kind of the table. Okay. So you have to calculate arrivals, and the arrival date is there, departure date is there. That means arrival, in between arrival and the departure, that these days he is stay in Sri Lanka. In between arrivals and the departures. Okay. So that from 1st May to 6th June 2012, period of stay in Sri Lanka, 51 days. Okay. Then August 20th to November 20th, 93 days he is in Sri Lanka. Then December 21st he came to Sri Lanka. January 12th he departed from Sri Lanka, 23 days. He is in Sri Lanka. When we calculating this one, the arrival date, we consider that he is physically in Sri Lanka. That means May 1st, he is physically in Sri Lanka. Then departure date, 6th June, whether he is in Sri Lanka or not in Sri Lanka. For the tax purpose, we consider as he is still in Sri Lanka. 6th 20th as well included in 51 days. May 1st and the June 20th, both days are in these 51 days. He is physically still in Sri Lanka. Okay. So August 1st to December 30th, 152 days. Okay. Then calculate for these 2 year of assessments, because how many year of assessments are there according to this the question? How many year of assessments are there? 12-13. 12-13 means 1st April to 1st April 2012 to 31st March 2013. Okay. So for that year of assessment, he is resident or non-resident. Can you calculate that? Just have 5 minutes. For the year of assessment 2012 and 13. Hmm? 179 days. Then second year of assessment is 1st April 2013 to 31st March 2014. How many days he is in Sri Lanka? Because we are focusing on the physically present in Sri Lanka. 182 days. Shall we look at the answer? $179 days. Year of assessment 1230. Okay. Non-resident. Then 2013 and 14, 192 days. Due to that, he is resident for that year of assessment. Now 2 situations. So that 2012 and 13, he is a non-resident. So which income he is liable to pay income tax? (1213) which income? On which income? World income or income derived within Sri Lanka? Income derived within Sri Lanka, he is liable to pay income tax. But for the year of assessment 2013 and 14, he is resident, so that his world income, even Australia income, if there is no exclusion, he is liable to pay income because he lives in Sri Lanka as well. Sorry, Australia as well. So that his the Australian income, the income, you are liable to pay income tax under the Sri Lankan law. Okay, that's how we are going to decide the residential status. Okay, so this is again a question. So for this question you have to calculate try to give develop the answer. Mr. Peter is from Swiss and is very often in Sri Lanka. His dates of arrivals and departures as follows. Okay, 2000 he is not in Sri Lanka, not a Sri Lankan citizen. Okay, he is from Swiss. Okay, so that now because his due to some of the reasons, he frequently he is coming to Sri Lanka. So this would be his arrivals and the departures. Then you have to decide whether he is resident or a non-resident. We are not bothering about whether he is a citizen or non-resident for the taxation purpose. Okay, even a foreigner, he is liable to pay some of the income taxes in Sri Lanka as well. Okay, this Mr. Peter. So can you calculate this according to these movements? How many days within Sri Lanka? So because he arrived on 5th May 11th and departed on July 11th. In between, how many days in Sri Lanka? Just give it a try. I hope that online students as well calculated these things. Okay. Roughly at least. Okay, I think now in online students even you can see the presentations. Okay, we can go ahead with that. So can you calculate this according to these arrivals and the departures, how many days Mr. Peter in Sri Lanka? Okay. So here, according to our question, you can identify 3 years of assessments. If you are correctly identified, First one is 2010-11 year of assessment. Okay, according to the 10-11 year of assessment, according to his first arrival to Sri Lanka and departure 62 days he is physically in Sri Lanka, then 93 days and 17 days and 26 days he is physically in Sri Lanka. Okay, total 198 days he is physically in Sri Lanka. So what is your conclusion? His residence in Sri Lanka for this year of assessment 2010 and 11. 109, because our criteria is it should be 183 days or more. Now Mr. Peter in Sri Lanka, total 198 days. The second year of assessment is 11-12. Can you decide whether he is resident in Sri Lanka or not? Next year of assessment is 11-12. Just give it a try. 2011-12 means from 1st April 2011 to 31st March 2012. Whether he is resident in Sri Lanka or no. Online students, what your answer? $222 days. Look at the answer. Just close to that answer. So according to year of assessment 11 and 12, from 1st April 2011 to the departure in from Sri Lanka October 8th, so 191 days he is in Sri Lanka, and again he came to Sri Lanka December 26th and leave from Sri Lanka 1st January 6th, so that 12 days he is in Sri Lanka. Then let's again he came to Sri Lanka 1st January and departure from 26th January. So 16 days he is in Sri Lanka. So that total would be 219 days. He is physically present in Sri Lanka. So he is resident in Sri Lanka for that year of assessment as well. Mr. Peter was present in Sri Lanka 219 days, therefore he is resident throughout that year of assessment. Okay, so that next year of assessment, is there any other year of assessment for that question? November 2000, 21st November 2012, he arrived to Sri Lanka. Then he have a departure from Sri Lanka. So what would be the year of assessment? 1213. That means he is resident in Sri Lanka or not, according to that. Year of assessment. We calculated only 10, 11, 11, 12. Then 12-13 year of assessment, whether he is resident in Sri Lanka or not. 131 days he is physically present in Sri Lanka, because we are focusing on 1st April 2011 to 31st March 2030. When he departure on that date, so that only 131 days he is physically present in Sri Lanka. Now for that year of assessment, he is non-resident person under the income tax law. So Mr. Peter was present in Sri Lanka only for 131 days in that year of assessment. Therefore, he is treated as non-resident person. For both two previous year of assessment, he is resident person, so that he is liable to pay income tax on which income? World income. For that year of assessment, that means last one, 12-13, he is non-resident, so that according to Sri Lankan tax law, Mr. Peter need to pay taxes in an income and the profit derived only within Sri Lanka. He is not liable to pay any other country income like Swiss. Okay, so that is the conclusion. Okay. That is up to now we discussed the first rule. Okay, when you decided the residential status for the individuals, first subsection 2 deals with his physically present in Sri Lanka 183 days or more, we consider him as a resident person. The second one is subsection 3, and still it is relating to the individuals. The individual who has been deemed resident for 2 or more years of assessment shall be deemed to be resident. That means previous 2 years of assessments, at least previous consecutive 2 years of assessment, he is resident person. Like Mr. Peter. Okay, 2 years of assessment, he is resident person, and shall be deemed to be resident. We continuously deem to consider as a resident person until such time as he is continuously absent from Sri Lanka for an unbroken period of 183 days. Okay, when such person is so absent, he shall be deemed non-resident from the commencement of the year of assessment in which such absence commences. That means individual, he or she is continuously resident at least 2 consecutive years of assessments. Okay. Any year of assessment, he is continuously absent. Unbroken period of 183 days he is absent from Sri Lanka. Okay. We consider as he is non-resident at the commencement of that year of assessment. Okay, so that we in that case continuously 183 days he should be absent in Sri Lanka. Unbroken period, continuously he should be absent. Okay, so that in that year of assessment, even though previous year of assessment are resident, from that year of assessment we consider as a non-resident person. Okay. Mr. Nalin was a resident person for previous 2 years of assessments. Okay. He went abroad on 1st August 2000 2014 and came to Sri Lanka on 1st November 2015. Determine his residential status for the year of assessment 2014 and 15. We have to check whether there is an unbroken period of 183 days is there. Can you calculate that one? $92 days. We're focusing on the year of assessment 1st April 2014 to 31st March 2050. Okay, so that 1st April 2014, then August he went abroad. August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. Till March 2015 he is absent from Sri Lanka. Okay, am I correct? Because he went abroad August 1st. Then till at the end of that year of assessment he is not in Sri Lanka. Because he came to Sri Lanka on November 1st, 2015. Our year of assessment will be ending on which date? 31st March 2015. So how many days? 243. So if it is 93, it should not the correct answer. Because from August 1st to 31st March, totally continuously he is absent. Because he went abroad on August 1st. Came on only after the year of assessment, that is 1st November. But we consider only after the 31st March, so that it is more than 183 days continuously he is absent. It should be nearly 200 days, I think. So that he is a non-resident person. I think the answer mistaken you have got, you considered that November 1st, 2014 he came to Sri Lanka. If so, it is incorrect because he went abroad Sri Lanka balance is within Sri Lanka. Because we focusing on not abroad days, but we focusing on what? Physically present in Sri Lanka. Okay, so that he is a non-resident. Then the other one is some employees are there. This is again relating to the individuals. Okay, some employees are there. They are working in abroad on behalf of the government due to his job. Okay, so that an employee of a Sri Lankan government who is a resident abroad for the purpose of his employment. Okay, the employee who is working for the government employees, but he is working in abroad. Okay, as well as his spouse are deemed to be resident in Sri Lanka. He and his spouse be considered as resident in Sri Lanka. But normal rule, under the normal rule is what? If he is not physically present in 183 days or more, we call it as non-resident. But he is actually not physically present in Sri Lanka because due to his employment he went abroad. But due to what? To serve the Sri Lankan government, he is considered as what? Resident in Sri Lanka. Even though he is living in abroad, for the tax purpose, we consider him as a resident person. Okay, so that if his emoluments are not liable to tax in any other country, so that any other country his emoluments are not taxed, we are going to tax. Okay. However, such an employee of a Sri Lankan government, he is non-citizen, that means foreigner. Okay, non-citizens will not be liable to income tax in respect of any other sources except his official emoluments and income and profits and income arising or derived from Sri Lanka. Okay, so that means if a non-citizen work for the Sri Lankan government, non-citizen is working for the Sri Lankan government, normally we consider as a, even the non-citizen working for the Sri Lankan government, we call it as a resident person. Okay, resident person. But for this case, we are going to, if it is a resident person, what will happen? He is liable to pay income tax on world income. But here, if that non-citizen is working for the Sri Lankan government, we are not going to charge tax not on the world income but only the income derived within Sri Lanka. Okay, so these are some special cases for the individuals, and the other one is some employees are there, they are working for ships. Okay, that means they are most of the days are not within Sri Lanka but in the traveling. Okay, so in such a case, how those people we consider as a resident, whether he is a resident or a non-resident. An individual employed in Sri Lanka ship is deemed to be resident. Okay, in Sri Lanka for the purpose of his liability to income tax during that such employment. If under his employment contract during that period, he is, even though he not physically present in Sri Lanka, but he is on ship due to his job. So even though he is not physically in Sri Lanka, but we consider as him what? Is a resident person. But he is not physically appearing in the Sri Lanka, but he is in on traveling. So that if these employees work in a Sri Lanka ship, we are going to consider them as a resident if those employees are working in a Sri Lanka ship within the meaning of Merchant Shipping Act. There is a registration, so that if that registered ship is under the Merchant Shipping Act, that employees, even though they are not physically present in Sri Lanka, okay, that particular period, we consider them as resident persons. Where such employee is a non-citizen, that means foreigner, he will be liable only in respect of his employment income in a Sri Lankan ship. If a foreigner is working in Sri Lanka ship under the Merchant Shipping Act, that foreigner will be liable to pay income on that shipping income, under that work in that income. Okay, that means his employment income. Those are the two other special things. Okay. So this is about the residential status of the individuals. But for your course, you need to be focusing on the first one, the residential status on that physical presence in Sri Lanka. But you have to have an idea these areas as well. In addition to that, there are other areas as well, but I have picked only these main areas for your discussion. And this is regarding the individuals. Then your course unit as well, there is a companies. How we are going to decide the company is a resident or a non-resident? This physical presence, all the things are relating to the individuals like us. But for the companies, we cannot decide his residence or non-resident based on the physical presence. So what is the decision criteria? We discussed it earlier. Based on the incorporation or the registration office should be in Sri Lanka, or second criteria, other option is there, that is management and the control should be processed within Sri Lanka. There is any criteria is satisfied, we call that company is resident in Sri Lanka. If not, we call it as a non-resident company. Okay, these are the things I need to discuss under this introduction part. Okay, so today we discuss the main objectives and the principles. Then because every person is liable, so you have to have an idea under your calculation, individuals, companies, partnerships, charitable institutions, and trade associations, almost all the areas are there. So some companies are, you have to identify whether he as a company or as a person he is liable to pay tax or not. Especially partnerships, we are not going to pay taxes as a partnership name, only calculating the tax and distributed based on their divisible profit ratio. So these things also you will be experiencing in due course. Then we focusing on every person is liable to income tax. Then they have to pay taxes on their profits and income. Profits and income are different sources. You will be studying in depth in next few sessions. Employment income, property income, business income likewise. So then you have to identify whether there is a taxable income. You are going to pay taxes only on the taxable income. Some income are there, you need not to pay any single cent of tax for some particular income sources. So you have to carefully analyze and segregate it whether these income are taxable or not. Then you are going to pay the taxes on one specific period. We call it as what? Year of assessment. It consists with 12 months period starting from 1st April to 31st March, because it is very essential. Some questions you have to identify some, for example, expenses, some income sources are there. You have to clearly identify whether that income is pertaining to this particular year of assessment or not. If you are not in a position to identify correctly, total answer will be wrong. Okay, so it is carefully you have to be identified. Then there is a specified rates. For example, individuals first 500 only 4%, likewise 4%, 8%, likewise it will be go up to 24%. Specific rates are there. Even for the VAT, even for the ESC, all the taxes we are having the specific rates. You need not to be bothered about what would be the rate. So it is clearly mentioned these rates are there. Okay. So every person for the specific period by using specific time period and the specific rates and specific income sources. Those things, those are the basic things and the important things you have to keep in your mind when you are calculating these income taxes. So, and next week, most probably I will be announcing your first assignment. Then it will be due on 7th week. So I will make it available. And if there is no any queries and clarifications, we can wind up little bit early today. Okay.